would, go ahead and open your Bibles to Genesis chapter 1. We'll be there a little bit, but not very long. Excuse me. Verse 3 of Genesis chapter 1, we find that God created light. He separated light from the darkness. Verses 4 through 5. The light he called day, the darkness he called night. And if you would jump down to verses 14 and through 16, which is the fourth day. Excuse me. And God said, "Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs, and for seasons, and for days and years. And let them be for lights in the firmament of heaven to give light upon the earth." And it was so. And God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. And I think verse 17 says, God set them in the firmament of heaven to give light upon the earth. Okay, ever since that time, we've looked at the stars, we've looked at the moon, we've looked at the sun. Man's been fascinated by that. Genesis chapter 1 says they're there to tell us the seasons, the times, the years, how time progresses. They're the measuring stick for our time. We know the moon revolves around the earth. What is it, 30 days? Yeah, every 30 days. I think that's right. That it creates a month. We know that 12 of those make a year. And that's how we measure time. We might call that the study of the planets, the study of the stars, etc., astronomy. Okay? Astronomy. There's also a study that, as Webster defines it, a pseudoscience, which means fake science, based on the notion that the positions of the moon, the sun, and the stars affect human affairs, that one can foretell the future by studying the stars, the moon, the suns, etc. It's called astrology. Okay? It's called astrology. Now we'll discuss more about fortune telling next week, but today we'll limit that aspect to just astrology. Okay? What I plan to do today is talk about the history of astrology. It's not new. It's kind of old. Talked about my age, 57. Okay, when did I come of age? Well, right as the hippie revolution was going on. Okay, the rebirth of astrology. So we'll talk some about that. Beliefs of astrology. I changed that. Why does it say astrology? Okay. A Christian response to astrology as well. Let's talk about things from my childhood. The Farmers Almanac. Start with that first. My grandmother believed that that was the absolute thing that you followed when you made your garden. Okay? If it said plant stuff at this point in time, you planted stuff at this point in time. She had some other rules which were outside of that, like you don't plant your lettuce always on Valentine's Day, right? You don't plant your tomatoes before Easter. Plant them before Easter in Missouri, it's going to get bitten by frost. Your tomatoes will die. But the Farmers Almanac is more, there's been some ideas that it's linked with astrology, but it's more just a mathematical calculation, statistical model, if you will, based on historical events that have happened. And they've formulated this big monster of a mathematical calculation to predict things that would happen. Well, with any mathematical model that you have, you're going to have statistical variation. So most of the times it's pretty close, but sometimes it's not so close, and sometimes it's off. Farmers Almanac, 1. How about the age of Aquarius? Musical Hair came out in 1967. I didn't know much about it. I was only 8 years old at that time. But I do remember listening to this song in 1969 when I was around 10 by the Fifth Dimension called The Age of Aquarius. Okay? And the idea behind that song is, you know, Jupiter and Mars and the moon and all that stuff's going to align, and there'll be peace on earth, right? Goodwill towards man? No, just peace on earth, peace to mankind. Man's positioning, the moon's position and the sun will bring peace on earth. About the Chinese zodiac. It's known as Qing Zhao. It's based on a 12-year cycle, and each year in that cycle related to an animal sign. The signs are the rat, ox, tiger, and so forth. Well, what's your astrological sign? When were you born? What were you under? I'm a Scorpio. Okay, I was born in November, so I'm a Scorpio. Okay? What's my Chinese zodiac sign? I was born in 1959, so I'm a pig. That explains, right? Hey, I've got proof. Explains why I'm, well, wait a second. Lisa was born in 1959. No, it doesn't explain, does it? Okay. It's long-haired stuff, right? What we're talking about, it's the hippie generation. It doesn't really apply today, does it? No one really thinks about that today, do they? Yes, they do. I was getting my hair cut a few weeks ago. The lady that was cutting my hair was complaining about this customer that she had, a difficult customer, wanted an appointment at this point in time, and she couldn't do it at that point in time. She said, come back tomorrow, and he just threw a fit. She knew she was in trouble with him because she was a Leo and he was a Virgo, and they never got together, right? Okay, that explains it. I had an interview with somebody applying for a job. Had a lot of history of job changes. Asked her about one particular job. I forget what the signs were, but it's because their signs didn't meet, they weren't compatible, and so that's why she had to leave that job, right? I thought you didn't work very well at that job. That's why you had to leave. What about horoscopes? Read your horoscopes? Okay. There's a horoscope.com is a site offering free horoscopes. Georgia Nichols, she's I think in the Chicago Tribune with hers. There's this place called Mystic Meg. She caught my attention because of the name, and then also what she says, what do the stars have in store for you today? Okay, right. How about our financially strapped commercial appeal? Okay. They publish a horoscope every day. Take up about a 3-inch column dedicated to horoscopes. We had a low tire this morning. I went back and read my horoscope. It didn't say anything about going to have car problems today. No, it didn't. I'd like to read from Lynn McMillan's first paragraph, page 16. This is a little bit dated. You say dated, why? Let's type that, page 19. Why is that dated? Well, it's dated because it was written in 1975. It's copyrighted book. But some of the things actually still apply today. He says, Western astrologers believe that every truth abides in the zodiac. Consequently, astrology divides into 4 main categories to accommodate all queries. First, natal, or zodiacal astrology professes to chart one's personality, professes to ascertain the potential of one's life. In other words, what sign were you born under? Based on that, it's how you're going to end up in life. Okay? This branch plots the stars to chart one's personality, their interest, and future potentials. Second, judicial or mundane astrology seeks understanding of the fate of nations, world events, and great world leaders. Other international affairs such as economics, weather, health are often listed under this category. Third is the natural or physical astrology. It offers tips on earthquakes, matters of science, and gardening and farming. Fourth horary astrology. Okay? Okay, this is the most popular branch, and it seeks to ascertain the outcome of questions on any subject. Just go to your charts. Okay? Astrologer charts the stars at a precise moment. The question is asked to determine the advisability of a person's course of action. Well, Jupiter and the moon's not aligned, so don't do that today. That I did. One may ask whether to make a trip, invest money, take a job, or have surgery. You consult the signs, the charts. Is it new? Is astrology new? No, it's not. Probably the one that had the most extensive ancient, I guess, library of astrology things. Excuse me. Ashurbanipal, the king of Assyria, from 668 to 626 BC. We know from Daniel chapter 2, Daniel chapter 4, verse 7, Daniel chapter 5, verse 11. That was an official position in the king of Babylon's cabinet, if you will. One of his things was astrologers. The Tomb of Sethos, the first, from around 1300 BC in Egypt, as figures of the constellations, okay, charting this practice. It had spread there around 1300 BC. Thales of Miletus, 6th century BC, and marks the beginning of Greek philosophy and inquiring into the universe for that philosophy. How about Pythagoras? Familiar with the Pythagorean theory? Yeah. Sum of the sides squared equals the square of the third side. It's a right triangle. Yeah, right. That's the Pythagorean theory. Well, he also was an astrologist. Wrote Harmony of the Spheres. The universe is composed of compatible and interrelated parts. Should have just stayed with geometry. Okay. Aristotle took similar interpretations. Erosus had a school of astrology on the island of Kos around 280 BC. The Romans, okay, the Romans. Their original approach to astrology was to fight it, keep it out. It's the work of something else. It's not to be alone and be there. Cato in the 2nd century warned against it. Don't let it in the nation. Cicero, 442, attacked it in his, shouldn't write these things down, in his work. He says, superstition has stolen nearly everyone's senses and scored over human silliness. Claudius, in AD 62. You think Claudius, what do we think of him as? Aquila and Priscilla, they had to leave Rome because he cast out all the Jews, right? He also cast out all the astrologers in 62 AD, threw them out of Rome. Pliny's Natural History in AD 77 offered an astrological interpretation for most natural calamities, and so it started to change. Ptolemy, AD 150, was the first to combine Babylonian astrology with Greek philosophy on the basic elements of the universe: earth, air, fire, and water. Tetrabelos was his work, and this is what he says. The ancients accepted two planets, Venus and Jupiter, together with the moon, as beneficent because they abound in the warm and moist, and Saturn and Mars as representing the opposite nature, one because of his excessive cold, and the other because of his excessive dryness. Maybe that's where we get the women are from Venus and men from Mars type thing. Ptolemy built the Geocentric Theory. In other words, the Earth is the center of the universe. Then starting with Heliogabalus in AD 220 until the Roman Empire collapses in AD 476. The Roman emperors began to accept and embrace astrology. How about the Middle Ages? The Arabs studied it around 800 to 1100 AD. John of Toledo, 1186, predicted a cosmic catastrophe in September 1186. It never happened. But yet, besides all that, Robert Grosseteste, the first chancellor of Oxford University, accepted it as reliable. The French placed strong stock in it. The Centuries by Michael of Notre Dame, published in 1555, as well as Catherine de Medici, the Queen of France, 1570. She used to rely upon the astrologers' interpretations before she would make a decision. Okay? Should I make this decision? What does the stars say? Yes. Well, there was a modern revival. Around 1899, 1890, there's this lady, Evangeline Adams. She was in Boston. She began using horoscopes to predict the future. Okay? Well, one day around 1899, her says, you've got to leave Boston, you've got to move to New York. So she goes to New York. She can't find a place to stay, so she ends up staying at the Windsor Hotel. She talks to the Windsor Hotel owner. Says, look at the signs, I predict a dark, dismal future for you. The next day, this hotel burned down to the ground. Ah, it's right, it's perfect. She knows what she's doing in astrology, and therefore she had the first radio program of astrology, began in 1930, and at her peak she had 4,000 daily listeners. Okay. The signs. Aries, okay? So I have to walk around with both things. March 21st through April 19th. That's when your birthday falls. That's what you are. Aries. Okay? According to astrologers, it's a masculine, fiery, dry, commanding personality. The person born under this sign is supposed to be tall, long-faced, long-necked, broad shoulders, red, sandy-colored hair, brown complexion, and piercing eyes. Okay? Disposition is supposed to be passionate, warm, and hasty. Taurus, also known as the bull, born in April 20th through May 20th. Okay? Supposed to be feminine, earthly, dry, cold, melancholy. The person under this sign will likely have a broad forehead, dark curly hair, be slow to anger, okay, and difficult to be appeased in his anger. So once somebody's slow to get there, but once he gets there, he's a bull. Okay. Gemini, May 21st to June 20th. It's masculine, hot, and moist. The person under this sign is supposedly tall, erect, dark complexion, having brown hair, and hazel-colored eyes. He is also accurate in his judgment and physically strong. They need to find Gemini. Cancer, June 21st through July 22nd. Maybe those guys born during this time, Cancer people, okay. Cancer is feminine, cold, moist, watery, very fruitful. The person has fair and pale complexion, is short, of small stature, is round-faced, has light hair, light eyes, with a weak constitution and weak voice. that's one of the things as we go through this, and as you look through, if you do look through your horoscopes, you find that one of the things, in fact, I'm going to quote some statistics as we get towards the end of this. I don't want to fall off. As we get towards the end of this, that are from 1974. And you say, oh, what is that, 43, 45 years ago that these, well, one of the reasons why is as we moved away from astrology being the thing, predictions have gotten more loose, I guess you'd say, or broad, less defined. So it's hard to find somebody that when they predict something that's going to happen, and that it's, you know, that you can actually apply most events to the predictions that they say, and one may be to the good for somebody and to the bad for somebody else, and it's still the same horoscope, right? Same prediction. And you'll find that a lot of inconsistencies in these definitions. Where do we get off to? Leo, July 23rd through August 22nd. It's masculine, fiery, dry, and very brazen. This person will be of a tall and powerful physique, well-shaped, having light-colored hair, strong eyes, ruddy complexion. Okay? Character of this person supposedly is fierce, yet open to courtesy. Okay. All right, here we go. The Virgo. It's feminine, cold, dry, and unfruitful. Virgo is August 23rd through September 22nd. Okay? This person is of middle stature, clear, brown or ruddy complexion, having dark hair and eyes, round face, a soft but clear voice. The personality of this individual is amiable, witty, scholarly, and of good speaking ability. Okay, Libra. September 23rd to October 22nd. Masculine, hot, and moist. This individual is very handsome, tall, gray eyes, of a courteous and proper disposition. All right, Scorpio, October 23rd to November 21st. This is me, okay? It's feminine, cold, and watery, okay? My nose is running, I'm kind of, yeah, okay. Maybe. This individual is strong, corpulent body, yeah, that's me. Medium size, well, maybe not so much. Dark, but not clear complexion. Dark hair, what happened to it? Dark eyes, excuse me. Black hair, and short, thick neck, legs, and digits. Well, I don't know. Okay, maybe my sign was wrong. Born on the wrong side. Sagittarius, November 22nd to December 21st. Masculine, dry, and hot. This person is supposedly of medium size, inclined toward baldness, ruddy complexion, and handsome. The person is fearless, generous, and hasty. Okay. Capricorn, December 22nd to January 19th. It's along the sun. Okay. Feminine, earthly, and cold. This person is slender, thin-faced, dark eyes and hair, long neck, and is cheerful in disposition. Okay, we talked about the age of Aquarius. Here's Aquarius. January 20th to February 18th. It's masculine, it's hot, rational, fixed, humane. The person is strong and robust in overall appearance, long-faced, clear complexion, and open and honest in disposition. In Pisces, the fish. February 19th through March 20th. Feminine, cold, common, idle, sickly, yet very fruitful. The individual is short, poorly shaped, thick body, light hair, pale complexion, and large face and head. The person also has a weak, vacillating disposition, yet well-meaning. I read through those definitions. You can look on the internet, you'll find something similar and something different, and depending on what sites you get to, be careful, because some of them get really way out there on the definitions of what your personality is like. because of the sign you're born under. Obviously, as we went through that, I did that for a purpose. Because as you're going through that, you know people that were born under those signs that are complete opposite from those definitions that they just gave. Okay? And kind of shows you a little bit about astrology and what it comes to. Is it right? Is it wrong? Well, no, it's not right. And yes, it is wrong. Let's look at a Christian's response to astrology. The early church writers, Tertullian, AD 211, equated astrology with idolatry. No one should interpret his future by the stars, but should depend upon the gospel of Christ to determine his future destiny. That's what Tertullian said. Hippolytus of Rome in AD 225 was refuted. I can't even talk this one. When he refuted all heresies. Book 3 refutes Chaldean science and astrology in great detail. Book 4 calls it a heresy of astrology. It said it originated with the Chaldean idea of good and evil aeons. In other words, life, the vital force behind your actions. Okay? Yeah, you're starting to get where we're going with this, right? Lactanidus, AD 307, Divine Institute, says astrology are things false of themselves. Basil of Cappadocia, AD 370, says those who give themselves up to this imaginary science and those who listen to them with open mouth are supremely ridiculous. Gregory of Nyssa, AD 382, postulated that if fate is the influence of stars, which are always changing their position, then their influence ought also to change continually. In other words, the stars are always moving around, so if they're in this position that determines your fate at one point in time, they change position, shouldn't they have a different meaning now? Okay. Augustine, AD 397, says the instruction of the stars could not be trusted. Around AD 400, he wrote The City of God. It says, those who hold that stars manage our actions or our passions, good or ill, without God's appointment, are to be silenced and not to be heard, for that this opinion doth flatly exclude all deity. Now we're to the point. Biblical principles. Astrology denies complete freedom of human will and responsibility. I didn't act because I wanted to act that way. I acted because the moon was in a certain position and the stars were in a position. Okay? It wasn't me, something else. We know from Joshua chapter 24, verse 15, 1 Kings 18:21, James 1:13 through 15, men choose how they behave. Okay? We also know that from 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 13, that God puts limits on temptations and provides a way for escape. Okay? It's not predetermined by the way the stars are, it's predetermined by how God sets the boundaries on us. And the biggest punchline is from 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 10, and Romans 14, verse 12, that one day we'll all appear before the judgment seat of Christ, and we'll give account for the actions we've done in our body, whether they be good or evil, not for the actions that the stars led us in. Okay? Response number 1, we are responsible for our own actions. Biblical principle number 2. Astrology is a form of nature worship and is condemned by God. Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 19. It's corruption to lift up their eyes to heaven, worship the sun, the moon, and the stars. Deuteronomy chapter 17, verses 2 through 5, verse 3 in particular. Those who worship the sun, the moon, and the host of heaven will be stoned. Zephaniah chapter 1, verse 5. Cut them off that worship the host of heaven. How about Romans chapter 1, verse 22 through 25? Okay? That was directed at the Gentiles, right? They exchanged the truth for a lie, worshiped the creature more than the creator. Okay? Creature of men, creature of heaven, stars, all things created. Number 3. This is probably the one that's, I guess, hardest to get people to understand nowadays. But astrology limits the role of God in the world. You know from Job chapter 25, verse 3, Job 38, verse 33, Matthew 5, verse 45. And I can keep going on and on. God controls the sun, the moon, and the stars. He does. God is in charge. Romans chapter 1, that should be 13, verses 1 through 14, or 1 through 4. He's in charge of the governments. He sets up the governments. They rule by his authority, his authorization, right? 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 13. Temptations are going to come our way, right? But God limits what comes our way. We're not tempted above what we're able to bear, okay? And with every temptation, he provides a way of escape, okay? How about blessings? Matthew 5:45 says he sends his sun on the good and the evil, his rain on the just and on the unjust, right? He blesses the earth. Matthew chapter 6, verses 31 through 33. We're not to be concerned about the things of this daily life, okay? Don't let worries drag us down, but rely upon him. Seek first his kingdom, and all these things will be added unto you. Flying through this lesson this morning. I thought we'd have more chatting. I'm a hockey fan. I love hockey, okay? Any guys out there, anybody that's a sports fan? What's one of the things, what comes to mind with the sports, with a baseball player that comes up, or maybe it's a hockey player, you know? What do they like to do? What do they prepare for the game? What do they do? We got a ritual, right? They go through. It's got to be done this way, right? Superstition, yes, yeah. Well, that's kind of this way. This next point is belief in astrology gradually paralyzes human will. I can't stop fate. I hear it over and over again. I follow Pittsburgh Penguins with my hockey team, okay? I see them, they come out, I don't know, for whatever reason, they have a flat game. They're not on, they're not playing very well. Most of the time, they're just standing around watching the other guys skate around with the puck. And, you know, at the end of the game, I hear the comments, and the guy say, well, the puck just didn't bounce our way today. Get out there and skate a little bit, you know? Go after it in the corner, grab it, throw it to somebody else that's open in front of the net. You might find it goes in the back of the net at a time or two. You know? Yeah. No, it's not their fault, it's fate, right? Isaiah 47, verse 13 says, Thou art wearied in the multitude of thy counsels. Let now the astrologers, the stargazers, the monthly procrastinators stand up and save thee from these things that shall come upon thee. Okay, if they're so good, let them stand up and save you. No, don't. Act. Get things accomplished. Point 5. Astrology is a form of polytheistic idolatry, several gods. And we know that God only should be worshipped. Find this from Exodus chapter 20, verses 2 through 5, Joshua 24, verse 23, Judges 3, 7, verse 8, and then in Matthew chapter 4, 10, it says, Thou shalt worship the Lord thy God, and him only shalt thou serve. 1 Corinthians chapter 8, verses 5 through 6. Though things in heaven and on the earth may be called gods, there is but only one God, the Father of whom are all things. God is the only one that should be worshipped. Point 6. Astrology undermines genuine faith in God. In the Old Testament, he warned Israel to be perfect and rely upon him instead of astrologers, diviners, etc. Deuteronomy chapter 18, verses 13 through 16. Over to 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 3. 2 Peter 1, verse 3. That verse said he's given to us. Chapter 1, verse 3. 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 3. He's given us all things that pertain to life and godliness. It comes from God. Not the stars, not the heavens, not the position that we're in. It comes from God. Turn over, I guess it's actually the same page in my Bible. What's verse 7 of chapter 5, 1 Peter say?
Casting all your care upon him, for he cares for you.
Yeah, cast all your cares on him, for he cares for you. Yesterday, reach out to a close friend or a loved one at a distance. You might need a change of pace. Perhaps you are not sure enough of yourself to express your deeper feelings. As a result, you could come off as cold or detached. That was my horoscope yesterday. Today's wasn't much different. It was more of a positive thing. Okay? And like I said when we started the class, said nothing in there about my Mustang having a low tire range, which made me late for something. But yeah, that's something very far-fetched and things like that. I should be doing that, not because my horoscope says that, because God says that. Okay? In Proverbs, he who wants to be friendly must show himself friendly, right? Galatians chapter 6. Bear ye one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ. Okay? Those are biblical passages, not horoscopic passages. Horoscopic, is that word? Not from my horoscope. Some concluding thoughts. Predictions of astrologers are generally very vague and can be construed to mean several things. Okay, the Saturday Evening Post conducted a survey of British astrologers. This is from January to February of 1974. The best, the one that got the most right, got 12 out of 30 projections right. It's less than 50%, folks. The second best, 9 out of 30. 30%. Okay. The third best, only 4 out of 30. About 11%. Okay. 11% right. Yet every day I get my paper, I'm going to look this up and that's going to guide my life. How about letting this guide my life instead, the Bible. The purpose of the things in heaven. Psalms chapter 19 verse 1 says, "The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork." Psalms 90 verse 6, "The heavens declare his righteousness, and all the people see his glory." We should trust in God. 2 Corinthians chapter 1 verse 9. 1 Timothy chapter 6 verse 17. Hebrews chapter 2, verse 13. Paul, writing to the Ephesians, says in verse 20 and 21, "Now unto him that is able to do exceeding abundantly above all that we think or ask of him, according to the power that he worketh in us, unto him be glory in the church by Christ Jesus throughout all ages, world without end." Okay. I don't know how that works. I had 3 pages of notes last week, and I don't get through them. And I have 5 pages of notes this week, and I get through them. Plenty of time. But that's my thoughts on astrology. We'll talk a little bit more about some of the more of the fortune-telling aspects of it, and they get kind of intermingled next week. Next lesson, particularly when we start talking about the tarot cards and so forth. And I apologize for my mispronunciations this morning. Astrology. Is it a science? No, it's not. Is it something we should rely upon for our daily advice on how to live and our actions? No, it's not. What we should rely upon is God's Word. What we should do is read it, follow it, spend our time studying it, not the hours going in to come up with a lesson on astrology. No, just kidding. But I never, in my years of growing up, it was, when I was in high school, it was a popular topic, okay? Astrology, the horoscopes, and so forth. And then it kind of went away. Took a Greek mythology class in college, and that pretty much ended all my ideas on astrology, okay? But then, till recently, the interview I had with this one lady, she was the interviewee, I was the interviewer, I guess. That's how it goes. And some of the other things, comments of people I work with, and the hairdresser. That is still around today. I didn't think that was that way. I thought that died with Woodstock and so forth, but I guess not. Brother Rufus.
This is obviously not relative to what you're talking about, but in some ways it is. I grew up in an era, north central Florida, where, and I won't use the noun names that they describe these people, but other people spent a lot of money going to see the fortune tellers. I'll put it that way, most folks know that. And I've often heard, even from members of the Lord's church, even from gospel preachers, that our children, when they're born, don't come with an owner's manual. And I thought about that over the years. I thought, wait a minute, something's wrong here. Our children do come with the owner's manual.
Right.
The problem is, we don't read the owner's manual. We'd rather read some secular document. Well,
you're right.
I'm gonna let that one go.
The owner's manual stays in the glove box, and we like to go to this big fancy stuff.
And we'd be a lot better off.
Right.
The way we treat each other if we read the old owner's manual.
Yes. It would. It would. Thank you for your time, and get out a little early today. And we'll pick up next week talking about fortune telling.